I came across a post on social media from a trainer that posted underneath his photo, other than DM for coaching, was, let me get this correct, heavy compound movements are better than isolation exercises for whatever muscle you're trying to grow or develop. Heavy compound movements are better than isolation exercises for whatever muscle you're trying to grow or develop. There's a lot to unpack here. I think for starters, let's just define what the two are. What is a compound movement? It's a multi-joint movement. Bench press, squatting, push press, those are all multi-joint movements and also multi-muscle group movements. You know, squat, you have ankle, knee, hip, you got quads, you got hamstrings, you got calves, you got a little bit of back work in there. Hamstring, the deadlift also. You know, you have back muscles, hamstrings, glutes, all that fun stuff. Isolation exercises, usually single joint, leg extension, right? However, they're not single muscle groups. This is where a lot of people stop, basically because it's a little bit more nuanced than just, okay, leg extension is just quad only. It's really not. And if you've watched any of my other videos, I always say there's no such thing as an isolation exercise, because in the leg extension, okay, yes, your quadriceps is your primary mover. However, your hamstring still needs to work. It relaxes with our reciprocal inhibition, but it also supports the knee. You have the hip flexors that are being used. And not to mention, your upper body holds you in the seat. If you're grabbing those handles in any particular way, you now have engaged those muscles. Yes, very minor, very minute. However, they're still being worked. So technically speaking, there's no such thing as an isolation exercise. Everything's being worked. So, but with an isolate, in this particular case, it's a single joint movement. Leg extension being the same thing, prone leg curl being the other, lateral raise being another one. Alrighty? That's the definition of those two. Compound movements are great for overall strength development. 100%. Power lifters are prime examples of these, right? You know, and you could say that they're the best for muscle growth because you're doing larger amounts of weight. And as we know with hypertrophy, the more weight you do, the larger your muscle is going to get, right? However, it's challenging for new lifters. Okay, this is one of the downsides to compound movements. If they're new to exercise, a heavy compound movement is not the best choice. They don't know how to move. They don't know how to connect with their muscle. They don't understand proper positioning. So new lifters doing a heavy compound movement is very dangerous, number one, and not the smartest in a programming sense. Now, a positive for an isolation exercise, okay? You get to target specific muscles. Excuse me. If I wanted to do, leg extension, that's the easiest one. If I wanted to really develop my quadriceps, to get that fine detail, leg extension is what I would need. Isolation exercises, address imbalances between, the sides. But also, you have your right side. If you're right side dominant, you might have a little bit more development in your right side. So you could pick up on the left a little bit more with an isolation exercise. Bicep curls are another one. Any of the tricep work is another one. And it's easier for a client to connect with their muscle, understanding how it works, how it feels with an isolation exercise. Now, The downside to isolation exercises is they're not the greatest for developing overall strength and power. Okay, yes, you're working the muscle, so it will get stronger. However, it's not ideal for developing strength. But it can be a good starting point. I did mention a few videos ago, is the leg extension functional? You know, if we define squatting as functional because it simulates getting up and down out of a chair, off a toilet, and all that stuff, what if the client can't do that if they're not strong enough? They lack the ability to do it on their own, where they have to use their hands now and pull. So the squat, it won't be as functional. They're not as strong to do it. So the leg extension can be used to develop your baseline strength to move on to in your progression, in your programming, to the squat. This is where I say heavy compound movements aren't the greatest choice for new lifters. Now, if you have an experienced lifter, that's a different story. Is it best for muscle development? No, it's not. Is an isolation exercise best for muscle development? No, it's not. The combination of both compound and isolation exercises is where you're going to see the absolute best results. Look at a bodybuilder. Bodybuilders are great examples. They do heavy leg press. They do heavy deadlifting, some of them. Heavy chest pressing. You know, all these compound movements, really heavy, but then they'll do a lighter fly. Then they'll do a lighter lateral raise, leg extensions, leg curls, calf raises, all these fine-tuning exercises. So if you want to grow and develop a muscle, it has to be done all around. Your programming needs to be all-encompassing. So a combination of compound and isolation exercises is going to be better off for any lifter, whether they're new or experienced. But to answer this question, is this trainer correct? Yes and no. Are heavy compound movements better than isolation exercises for overall strength and power? Yes. But for individual muscle development, no. Are isolation exercises better? Yes and no. Same thing. So, like I said, combination of the two, you get the best of both worlds. So I bring this up because there's a lot of misinformation on the internet, you know, from so-called fitness influencers and brand new personal trainers who've never really done anything in their life, got their first training job and now are just reading out of a textbook what they think is correct. So I try to be as unbiased as possible, as well as trying to bring you guys straight fact. Now, if there's anything I ever say that's incorrect and somebody wants to correct me, that's what the comments are for. And then I will take a look at it, and then we'll move on from there. Alrighty, I always say discuss before you disagree, and do your research and understand what you're talking about first before throwing it out there. Okay? Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. That's how we grow this channel, and that's why I can keep bringing you guys these videos. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks.